Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSeco. So, today we have very interesting articles that we'll be discussing. One is from the Hindu, and the other is from the Indian Express. The article from Hindu is Global Antitrust and the Challenge of Big Tech. This talks about a very important topic, and specifically in today's scenario, which talks about the monopoly that is often created by various huge technological companies, like if we talk about Facebook, Google, etc. Then, what are the repercussions of this, and what can be done in this direction has been discussed in here. And the second article is from the Indian Express Explained section, which is titled as President's Address in House. Now, since it is the first day of the beginning of today's from the session of the Parliament, and the President will be giving a session, will be giving us, speech or his address to Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha both. So, how this convention actually developed, and what are the constitutional provisions behind this, and what other countries follow in this regard has been discussed. And finally, we have the news in flash column. So if you're also preparing for judicial services examination, you can have a look at the Lord of the Courses, which is the judiciary test prep course coming from LawSeco. The link to this course is available in the description box below. And at this moment, I would like to take this golden opportunity to I'm very delighted to inform you all that since yesterday we got the result for SEBI Level 1 exam, and approximately 30 more than 25 to 30 students have cleared the exams that had taken up the course of from SEBI from LawSeco. So this is really a proud moment for the entire team, and we hope that if at all you're also looking forward to any time cracking the SEBI exam, or even the lot of the courses through judiciary exam, CLAT, All India Bar exam, etc., you can definitely have a look at our courses. The link to all our courses are available in the description box. So this is the multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. Who among the following has been awarded by President's Home Guard and Civil Defense medals for his distinguished service? Your options are Baljit Singh Solanki, Ram Singh, Hridesh Kumar, or Jitendra Kumar. You can write down your answer in the comment section below. This is the descriptive question from the day. Google and Facebook are under scrutiny for violation of antitrust law in US and the European Union. If these tech giants are broken up, would it impact the digital revolution which is witnessed around the globe and also in India? You can write down your answer in a word limit of maximum 250 to 300 words. So this article, which talks about the regulation of big tech firms, it says that there are ongoing investigations in the European Union and United States on the abuse of monopolistic positions by big tech firms such as Facebook and Google. Firstly, let's understand that what do we mean by a monopolistic position. So basically, if there is any company, now if we talk about in the sense of business, or in any sense, it can be in the sense of economy, financial services, business services, education, etc. Monopolistic position means wherein the entire control of a particular service or a particular good is in the hands of one single company, which means that this company is the one that is deciding the market factors, and this company is the only one that is providing a particular kind of service. Now, example to this can be taken up as that the Indian government has a monopolistic right on the atomic energy generation. So we can say that the entire monopoly as to how much, where, when, why, and why not the atomic energy will be produced or generated in India is completely under the control of the government. So here we can give the example of a monopolistic position. Then, if we talk about railways as well, so till some time back, now as we know that private sector has been given a chance to flourish in the Indian railways as well, but only a few years ago, the Indian government had complete monopoly on the railways as well. So basically in India, we have the very provision of Competition Act 2000, which has the Competition Commission, which had actually replaced the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act. And this commission, Competition Commission under the Competition Act, makes sure that no monopolistic position is taken up by any company. Like recently when we know that the Jio had come up from the Reliance Digital, or Reliance from the side of Reliance. So many had claimed that it is trying to make a monopolistic market, which which to some aspect we may say that it was turning out to be true. But since there was no unfair thing taken up by Jio and other competitors like Airtel, Vodafone, Idea, etc., they had equal opportunity to flourish. So that is why, though a monopoly could have been created, but it was saved. So now I hope that you're all clear with the meaning of monopolistic position. So here also these big tech companies, Facebook and Google, have been alleged in US and the European Union that they have been trying to take up monopolistic positions, and thus they are trying to abuse the very power and position that they hold in the countries or in this area. So earlier, antitrust investigations were carried out in US telecom industry, and a breakup of AT&T company in 1982 had also taken place. Now, one thing that next that we need to see is the internet firms versus the telecom firms. Now, I just give you an example of Reliance Jio, which is actually a telecom firm. So, as you know, the telecom firms are those which provide us services for the telecommunication, like mobile services and other kinds of services. And internet firms are those which provide solely for the internet. Now, please don't get confused with this, because in India and various other countries, the companies that offer us telecom services are the very companies that also offer us the internet services as well. Like in the current state also, we have Jio Sims as well, and then we have Jio Fiber as well. Then we have Airtel that also provides for calling and also provides us with internet. But these are two different domains of that company. So it is not something that, because if you remember, there can be recharges. You can recharge your phone just for calling and even just for using the internet. So it is not something that they have to be buy or they have to be bought all together. So that is why many a times there are different internet firms and the telecom firms are different from them as well. Or even if the firm is same, their functionalities are completely different when it comes to giving the service of internet or giving the service of the telecom or telecommunication. So the information which is provided by the internet firms is non-rival, but the telecom network is rival in nature. Now here what we need to see here is that when we talk about the telecommunication services, we know that there is a quality of voice call that is available. 3G voice calls, 4G voice calls are available. Then also we have that they have their different spectrum and bandwidth as well. So this spectrum and bandwidth, the quality of this delivery will actually determine the clarity of the voice calls that can take place in the terms of telecommunication network. And that is why one company can have an advantage over the other company if it offers better prices to say, or if it offers clearer voice quality in the terms of calls. Now recently this trend had been seen that many of the users were switching from Idea and Airtel to Jio, since Jio was able to provide a clearer and better network for telecommunication services. So that is why when we talk about the telecom network, it is rival in nature, wherein there is a lot of competition amongst the providing companies. But if we talk about the information provided by internet firms, then it is not really rival in nature. Now, please consider that we are talking about the information that is provided by the internet firms and not the internet signals per se, all right? Because again, then the internet signals are dependent upon the spectrum and the kind of, the bandwidth that they have. But then the information which is provided by the internet firms is not rival in nature. Then the telecom services come with the jurisdiction of regulators, but not internet firms as they operate globally. Now, here one thing we need to understand is that if at all Airtel has to function in India, if at all Jio has to function in India, then it would be buying the spectrum that would be auctioned by the government of India. So then it would be completely under the jurisdiction and the regulation of the Indian government, and thus the telecom services or the telecom services providers fall completely under the jurisdiction of the regulators, which in India's case is the government of India. But if we talk about the internet firms, they operate globally. Now, if we take example of Google, we take example of Facebook, WhatsApp, etc., or any of such internet providers, the firms which provide us internet services. So these operate globally. There is a high chance that if I'm sending an email, I might be sending it to US or UK or France, Germany, Italy, or any place internationally. And thus the users are quite international and global when it comes to the such firms like such internet firms like Facebook and Google. And that is why it is not really very easy to frame laws and regulations which can be equally binding on all the users. Now let me give you an example that if we have YouTube, we have Google. So these things are completely non-functional in China because of the Great Firewall of China. So if at all a person is residing in China, he would not be able to make any use of Facebook and Google. But if he moves to any other place, even close by to China, then he'll be able to make use of these services. So that is why even the domestic laws of that country determine the kind of internet firms that would be allowed over there, and thus one kind of global laws is are not possible in this regard. Then the goods and services provided by telecom companies are excludable. That is essential for customers to obtain connections, but the excludability of internet firms is still debatable. Now, here, if we talk about the goods and services provided by the telecom companies, like for example, calling or not calling, so that is something that is excludable, which means it is essential for the customers to obtain connections. But the excludability of internet firms is still debatable. So that is why how much can we deal without the internet firms, without Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, etc.? That is a kind of a question. Now, let's take an example that if we have any confusion regarding something, we just, what we do is we take up Google, we search that particular thing, we Google that particular thing, if we talk about in the the common language, what we say, and we are good to go. So in the current scenario, it is really difficult to imagine our lives without making use of these tech giants, and that is why it is really difficult to impair them or cut them or shut them down completely from the lives of the common people. So now we have various indispensable applications. That means we have various unavoidable applications, like the internet firms have become a part of our lives through Google Maps, Google Search, Google Scholar, YouTube, etc. And that is why it would just not be very easy to regulate these internet firms, because they serve huge population and they cater to a lot of needs and services of the people. Now, if we talk about the public goods, so public goods are the goods which are required by the public, and the government mostly takes up the responsibility of providing these public goods. Now, for example, a common example, though not very related to this, can be clean environment, healthy air to breathe, etc. These are all the public goods which the private institutions or firms will not really be very keen to provide due to the lack of return that they would be getting from these. So if we talk about in public goods, government versus the internet firms, the non-excludable and non-rival goods are called as the public goods, are generally provided by the government. Now here, why non-rival or non-excludable goods are provided? By non-excludable goods, we mean that which can just not be excluded, which we cannot do away with. So these are the things that are required for any basic growth, and non-rival, as we already discussed, in which there is no competition. So one thing that we need to understand here is that any good or services that is non-excludable and that is non-rival in nature. By non-rival in nature, we mean that there is no competition. And let me tell you that the private firms and institutions, the very core area from where they earn is the competition. Now, why some XYZ person prefers Jio over Airtel, or prefers Idea over Airtel, or prefers Airtel over Idea, or any of the things, just because the competition lies. Maybe Airtel is able to provide better services at a lesser price as compared to Idea. So this competition is the thing that keeps these companies afloat and alive in the market, and this competition only incentivizes them to do more and more and to innovate more and to make their goods and services more competitive, and thus giving them better customer base, and thus giving them better profits. So just imagine that if at all there is any particular kind of good or service in which no such competition is available, do you think that the private firms would be really incentivized to put in their money in investment if at all they're not able to gain anything back from it? Definitely not. So thus, such non-excludable and non-rival goods, which are called as the public goods, are generally provided by the government to the people. So, but the information goods provided through the internet is provided by them, by the private firms. So the information goods, the information that they need for any data creation or any kind of content creation, then this all information is provided to them by the private firms. Now with this, let's see that what are the problems in this direction. While the government has access to tax funds, private firms need to monetize their services. So what we see here is that if we talk about the provision of public goods, so the government, in return of their public goods, they get the taxes from the people. right? So, for example, we are using any kinds of roads, or we are using any kinds of basic services which are provided by the government. So, we tend to pay taxes through our income tax or other kinds of taxes. But the private firms, they need to monetize their services, which means that they have to include their profit from the very cost that they are bearing from the consumer. Like, for example, if you're paying 300 rupees for your recharge, so the private firm's profit also is counted in that 300 rupees. So that is why many a times what happens is that due to this monetization, the prices of various goods and services, they actually tend to rise a lot. So personalized advertisements, third party sharing of personal data information is also one of the sources through which they monetize and they earn for their services. Then firms tech increase their subscriber base, sometimes resulting in monopoly in some firms. So more market share is equal to more profits, definitely, and it may resort to anti-competitive behavior, like for acquiring rivals, erecting entry barriers, refusal to interconnect with other competitors, and the leverage capital base, with which it would be also predatory pricing. So anything like that, any anti-competitive behavior is definitely not encouraged, and it only leads to the monopolistic creation of their position. So this is definitely not something that is encouraged in any kind of economy. But back then, in the case of Facebook and Google, it has been witnessed hugely in the US and the European Union. So here are the possible solutions to it. Subsidize the goods that creates positive externalities for their orderly behavior in the marketplace. So if at all the firms, they are working well in under the regulatory zones of the government, and they are taking care of the ethical behavior in the marketplace as well, so the government can actually subsidize the goods and services that are provided by them, and this would definitely give them some benefit and edge over the other companies which are not really adhering to the rules. Then controlled expansion of products and services without hurting the interest of the consumer and minimize litigation. So definitely, like if in we should take care about the privacy of the consumers as well, the aspirations of the consumers, and there should be controlled expansion of products and services without hurting the interest of the consumers. And then use of the public voice to ensure net neutrality principles, like recently in the case of the WhatsApp privacy laws also, when this new regime of WhatsApp privacy thing had been introduced by WhatsApp, but due to such mass protest which took place amongst the users, so it has currently been put on hold. With this, let's see the second topic for the day, which talks about the president's address in the House. So the first parliament session of 2021 for this year will begin today with the president address to the both houses. So basically, this is the speech format and this is the historical timeline. So let's consider first of all the historical timeline as to how and when this very convention of the president's address to both the houses of the parliament had begun. So it was in the 16th century in the United Kingdom, and in 1790 it took place in USA when President George Washington's address was there. Then in 1990, through the Government of India Act 1990, it began in India as well. So law gave the Governor General, because as we know, back then we had the Governor General of India. So he had been given the right to address the Legislative Assembly, which was the Parliament, and the Council of States, which were the state legislatures. So it did not have the provision for joint address, but now Article 87. Now this another thing is very important. Which article provides for this joint sitting, under which the government can give, the president can give his address. So it is Article 87 provides for a joint sitting wherein the president can give his address. Then from 1947 to 1950, there was no address that took place through the Governor General, because this was the time when a constitution was being framed. Then in 1950, it was on 31st of January, address was there by Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who was the first president of India, and he was required to address each session. Then in the 1951 amendment, it was done that address will be given once a year. So this is the format. So now there is no precise, content that has to be made sure that is available in the speech or the address given by the president. But yes, there are some expectations out of it. So there is not a set format for the president's speech, but it has to be actually, it'll be to inform the parliament of the cause of the summons. So of course, first thing that would have been that has to be told is that why at all this joint session has been called. So this is provided in the Constitution of India. Then Professor K.T. Shah's recommendation to make president's speech more specific was rejected. So then there is this general structure which is followed up in the address of the president, highlighting the government's accomplishments from previous years and also setting off a broad governance agenda for the coming year. So this basically is like the torchbearer thing that all the MLAs and MPs would be looking for. All the MPs, would be looking forward to. Not the MLAs. Please consider this is for the Parliament. So all the MPs, the members of Parliament, look forward to accomplish in the coming time of frame. Then the speech is actually the viewpoint of the government to address the policy and legislative announcement. So basically, what is done is that various ministries and various departments, they actually given their report. They start giving in their report from beforehand, and if at all there is something that they want the president to mention in his address, so that information is also provided with them, and that entire information is compiled up, and then the president gives his address to both the houses. So this is one thing that you should be considering. So this is not just a convention, but also it has a provision under Article 87 of the Indian Constitution, and it is done to both the houses, though it can be done separately. But now, since we have this provision, it can be done to a joint sitting as well. So this is the procedure. As I had mentioned, you can go through this. It is just the same thing that we just discussed. So a motion is moved in the two houses thanking the president for his address. Then the motion is put to vote. Opposition MPs can express their disagreements by moving amendments, and the opposition in Rajya Sabha were successful in 1980, 1989, 2001, 15 and 16 to get the amendments passed. Then the occasion of MPs to have a broad debate on the governance in the country, and it is the only occasion. Now please keep this in mind. This is such an important time, because this is the only occasion in the year when the entire parliament, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and the president, they come together and sit together. So this is a really important time. So this is the only occasion that actually sees this confluence altogether. With this, let's see what do we have for news in flash today. Remembering the Holocaust. So it was on January 27th. The United Nations honors the victims of the Holocaust by reaffirming its unwavering commitment to counter anti-Semitism, racism, and other forms of intolerance. Now, as we know that the Holocaust was conducted by the then German leader, who was the Nazi leader, who was Hitler. So he had actually gotten lakhs of Jews killed under the Holocaust in Germany, and that is why anti-Semitism is a feeling which is against Jews feeling. So because he had a kind of unlikelihood, he did not really appreciate the Jews back then. So this is the feeling of anti-Semitism. So you should always know that it means the feeling of being anti-Jewish. So so this actually is the time to put down all such feelings of anti-Semitism, racism, etc. So it marks the anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi concentration and extermination camp of Auschwitz-Birkenau by Soviet troops in 1954. Then we have the COVID-19 Performance Index, which has been released by Lowy Institute, an Australian think tank, which sought to assess the impact of geography, political systems, and economic development in assessing outcomes. New Zealand and Vietnam have topped the index, and US and Brazil were at the bottom. And India also has not been really doing very, very well. India has ranked 86 out of 98 countries. So this also is a very important data. Then we have the Supreme Court of India's inaugural sitting. So this is another historic date. So it was on January 28th, 1950, that the Supreme Court of India took its seat for the first time under the new constitution in the court chamber of Parliament. So it was the inaugural sitting of the Supreme Court, and the chief justices of 13 high courts were in attendance, and a judge bench sat on that day. The Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, and ministers were also present. Then Pakistan received the geographical indication tag for its basmati rice. So Pakistan is currently fighting a case in the European Union against India's move to get basmati rice as a registered product. Now, as we know that once Pakistan was also a part of India, so definitely the terrain, the geographical areas, and also the climatic conditions of this entire border that we share with Pakistan is quite much the same as we have with India. So that is why the products also are, it can be very easily understood that the products coming out from these areas would also be quite similar. So that is why this contest is going on between India and Pakistan to get the GI tag for its basmati rice. So the GI tag, as we know, is a sign used on products that have a specific geographical origin and possess origin-based qualities and reputation in the region. So to get registered in the international market, it is necessary for the product to be protected under the national laws. So let's see that what actually is concluded in the case of the basmati rice for India and Pakistan. On this, I have a very interesting question for you all. The kesar, the saffron that we have from Kashmir, does it also have its own GI tag or not? Please comment down in the comment section. And also the tea, Assam tea, is it also has it also gained the GI tag or not? You can write down in the comment section below. Thank you so much. We hope it was a good session for you. If in case you wish to download the PDF for today's slides, you can join our Telegram group. And we have been seeing some difficulty with people not being able to join the Telegram group. Please consider we are really working on it, and hopefully it will be whatever discrepancy is going on, it will be cured very soon. But since then, if you are joining it back in late, also you can download the things from. We'll, if you wish, we'll make them available. We'll make available previous PDFs as well. Also, you can visit our official website for any other information too. Thank you so much.